Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, offering you daily doses of perspective and inspiration. Today's guest is Raj Singh, VP of Product at Mozilla and a serial entrepreneur who's built multiple startups from the ground up. He's someone who turns big ideas into reality, yet finds wisdom in the quieter moments of reflection between all that creating and building. Let's step into Raj's world for a few minutes and hear the quote that has guided him through both trials and pivots. Tell us your name and what you do, Raj.
So I'm Raj Singh, based in the Bay Area. I'm a VP of new products at Mozilla. I'm focused on small business new products.
Okay. Thanks for accepting my invitation to be on the podcast.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah. What's your favorite quotes, Raj?
Favorite quotes? A lot of the quotes I like are quite simple. I have this poster I used to have in my office, was like which basically said like try fail, try fail, try fail, try fail, and then it's like, try win. It's sort of like reminds you that you have to persevere and keep retrying, and it's very sort of inspirational from the perspective of being somebody who works on startups. Another quote that really comes to mind, not a famous quote by any means, but I recall an old board member sharing this maybe in like 2007, 2008, said something like, "You only get rich once." And I thought that was a really interesting comment because this was in the context of me sharing all the different things I was working on. And what they're really trying to say is focus. You don't need to work on 10 different things. Like, you just need to crush it once and focus. And so I thought, those are just some two quick things that really come to mind quickly.
Oh, try fail, try fail, try fail, try fail. Can you give us an instance from your own personal life where you've had to go over that cycle again and again and again, and then eventually you won?
Most of my career has been startups where I'm building things from scratch. And I will say there's almost nothing, well, no, let me take that back. There's lots of things that are incredibly persevering, but, from a tech startup career perspective, it is a grind. And a lot of people think the number one reason startups fail is because they run out of money. The number one reason startups fail is not because they run out of money. It's because the founders get tired. And it is because it's so much of a grind. So when I think about examples like that, I think of, I've had different startups that have failed and we're trying. There's days it's like, am I going to make it 2 more weeks? It creates family stress. It creates all kinds of stress, health stress, work stress. All of these things are going on, and you keep trying. I think of this other quote somebody once told me in this context: if you roll enough bowling balls, eventually you get a strike. So you're trying, right? And so, I don't. I probably have lots of examples of like that, both personally and from a work perspective. But I think the key thing is you have to persevere. It's mentally tough, but you'll get there. There's a hustle, there's an agency. You'll get there. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, you get there. You'll figure it out. Try fail, try fail, try fail, and then try win. Has there been a time where it's the exact point in time it felt like you've tried enough, now it's time to just give up and move on? But in retrospect, looking back, you're glad that you did not give up and you kept on going.
I would probably say the opposite. There's been instances where I felt like I gave up too soon. I talk about emotions that people experience after they sell a company, and I've sold a startup a few times, and usually the day of or the day after, there's a major sense of relief. Like it's very stressful, that whole process. But within a few days, it actually shifts to regret. And the reason it shifts to regret is because psychologically, you're always of the mindset, I could have gone bigger. I could have made this better. I could have conquered the world, right? This desire to just sort of compete and grow. And, in some ways it's almost just like human instinct, to acquire, whatever you want to call it, right? And you kind of go through that phase for a bit, and then you obviously move to some other emotions, and I've talked about this offline in other discussions. I've experienced that many times. I look back and I say, hey, what if I did this differently, or what if I did that differently? At the same time, though, I'm smart enough to recognize whether you call it correlation versus causation or chaos theory or whatever, that nothing is repeatable, right? We have no idea if I made a different decision, in month 7, week 2, decision number 7, at 2 o'clock that day, would the same timeline have emerged, right? And all of these Fox recommendations that you just sort of follow these 3 steps and you'll be successful. I think most of them are BS. Like I think these aren't repeatable things, right? You have to kind of figure out your own journey, your own path. You have to lean into what you enjoy, your passion, your superpower. But there are archetypal sort of things that you find. It's perseverance, it's high agency, it's creative execution, those sorts of things. But yeah, that's sort of my general opinion on this topic.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Raj.
Sure. Yeah.
Try and try and try and try and fail. Again, I like the fact that you shared that sometimes, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to keep trying, but in retrospect, we'll look back and we're glad that we did.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're a parent, but it's very visible with children. You'll have kids who just want to keep trying until they figure it out. They'll persevere. They want to learn how to roller skate or skateboard or whatever it might be or ski, and they're just keep trying. Like they just don't give up through the pain, through all the difficulty, through the turbulence. And then you'll have kids. I have 2 kids, and they're quite different. Who tries like this is too hard. I don't want to do it. Right. And it's really interesting. It's the default sort of human nature is to kind of like choose the easier path. Given 2 choices, like let's take the easy path, right? But there are uh, people who will choose the harder path because they view it as a personal challenge. And so I just think it's mindset, a winning mindset.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that it's very important to have a community, a group of people, that have the same what was similar goals, right? So we're trying to do the kind of things you're trying to do. That way, it's easy to just talk and have conversation with people that just get you.
I think one of the unfortunate byproducts of COVID, at least at least where I'm based in the States, is just people are socializing less or it's become more online. And, part of me goes, from a startup perspective, so much is about serendipity. You run into somebody just in your work process who opens a door. You bump into someone at the office. You meet somebody you weren't expecting at lunch. You're at a random event. And a lot of those kind of hallway chatter, sidebar conversations, just the random bump-ins have stopped because people are mostly working from home.
Yeah,
And since COVID, obviously there's been some return to office, at least here in the Bay Area, but for a lot of startups, for a lot of companies, it's still relatively remote. And so, um, I'm curious to see how this plays out. The other part of me wonders if I'm just being old-fashioned, and I look at my kids who are completely online, right?
uh,
And no desire to meet people in person. It's like, oh, I could just call them online, right? And so then I sometimes wonder, like, oh, maybe I'm just like another version of my dad, right? Like, like living in the past.
yeah. Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation. Yeah, that's the thing. Girl, one time we're like, oh, that is not cool and all those things. And now we've become that you have become that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope I'm not, but or well, not in a negative way, but
Yeah, of
but
course, of course.
I can recognize it.
Yeah, like oh no. Like that, this is my friend. Of course I'm trying to have a conversation here. uh, yeah, okay. What would the idea is okay, what advice do you have for my listeners? What advice would you want to give to my listeners?
How many of your listeners are thinking about like some idea they want to build. And in this world, like, this is the ownership economy. People want to build, be their own boss. They want to create. Generative AI is unlocking all kinds of creative potential. Building has never become easier than it's ever been before. Right? Democratized knowledge, democratized access, et cetera, et cetera. I think the key, when I meet people who have ideas of things they want to do, maybe they have their day job, and they're like, I really wish I could spend more time being a mural painter or whatever it might be, right? Or like starting a
Yeah.
service that could other thing, whatever it might be, right? And they always say, well, it's not the right time, and I think I think my advice would be, it's always the right time. Like, there's never a good time. You try to plan it like, oh, I'm going to wait till, this is done, or I'm going to wait till I move here, or I'm going to wait till I have my second kid, or I'm going to wait till, whatever, I finish this class. It's never the right time, and if
Yeah.
anything, time will go on and you'll miss the opportunity, and you'll look back saying, what if, right? And so what I often tell people, and I hear this a lot with startups, startup founders, aspiring startup founders, I want to build something. It's not the right time. I'm like, dude, it's the right time. You just got to go
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
So that would be my
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that advice with me and my listeners. It appears we have a cool guest with us on the podcast. Thank you for so much for that advice. I feel like I just want to step back to the quote you shared at the very beginning. That is, try and fail, try and fail, try and fail, try and fail. And I think one of the problems a lot of persons have in this day and time is that they don't spend enough time, long enough, to find a solution. And so, well, why they have a problem, they just like, oh yeah, I have a problem. Oh, I can't fix this. I can't fix this. And I'm like, oh, I tried. It didn't work out, and you move on. And then sometimes a problem is like, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to, like, repair, let's say, some gadgets or those maybe radio and all those things. Sometimes when you open the radio, you don't even know what you're doing. But you're like,
Yeah.
okay, you're testing the things. I mean, you have a basic knowledge of, okay, yeah, this is the basic principle of how a radio works, but you don't even know what the fault is or what the problem is. But you're like, okay, you test the this, you the current to this, and you have to be enough, right, to walk through the problem. Because if you just the thing doesn't work, it's faulty. There's not, and you move on. You have to be like be patient enough to like sit down and say, okay, be calm, relax, and say, okay, what's the way forward? And most persons don't even, if they don't have that patience to say, okay, yeah, I tried this. Sometimes you try 4 or 5 times before you say, okay, yeah, this is the way that works. Oh, I was struggling with this. That's why it wasn't even working in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I think the, I think one of the hardest questions, and I get this a lot, is like knowing when to stop trying, like when to quit,
Mm,
right?
ooh,
And you're really talking about what we often call A/B testing. You're hacking on a problem or an idea. You're trying to figure out a way to grow it, trying to figure out if it's working, trying to get feedback, whatever it might be. And it's like, it's not working. And the reality is, most startups, like 90% of them, are somewhere in that middle. Like, they're trying to fake it till they make it, right?
yeah,
They're not like successful out of the gate. And they're not like the bottom 10% that are clearly are not working, right? They're all kind of somewhere in the middle, and that's really, really hard. I don't, usually when you look at that cohort, it's often the founders get tired, right? They may be mentally tough, they may have like infinite energy, but you still get tired. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years trying to figure it out. It's not working. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's not time. But there's so many counter stories and examples where people push through, and 7 years later they figured it out, and now they're crushing it, right? And I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, because you do control your destiny at so many levels. But
yeah,
it's hard. I don't think there's a great answer. Um, there was a time I felt like a lot of investor types would try to advise on, like, oh, founders should quit sooner, things like that. But I don't know, right? And a lot of their feedback is coming from a different perspective. Their
yeah,
feedback is coming from the perspective, like, I've given you money, so I want you to kind of figure it out quickly, or let me write this off as a failure. Like, and if you just kind of drag this out, it's actually more work for me, because now I have to like manage this, and it may still lead to failure. And so it's a very different, maybe more selfish perspective. But I think ultimately it's a hard question to answer.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true, because certain scenarios might not even work for you. Yeah, so you're like, oh, when do you know to quit? When do you, and I think for one of the things that I've realized is that the goal of business is to stay in business, right? Ultimately, for every tax and everything you do, you should understand why you're doing it in the first place. And for the bigger the reason, that's what you want to stay true to. You don't want to quit that. But sometimes you might have to kill a certain project to work on something else, and that's not you quitting, right? It's you just making a strategic decisions, right? You're like, oh, I have this, and let's say, for example, we're talking about startups and all that. Let's say you start 2 startups, 3 startups, right? You don't even know which one is working, which one has a market demand and all that. And then when you start 3 startups, you realize that one is just having this customer market fit. People are just saying, wow, this product is like literally made in heaven. I can't believe you made this product for me. And customers are paying, and there's low churn and all those things. And all the good numbers just like, I mean, not big numbers, but they're just there. All the good things, all the signs, all the pointers are just there. And you're like, okay, yeah. Why, instead of trying to spread my energy across 3 startups, I might as well just if I want to sell those ones, that's if they are up to for selling, I could sell the first 2 and just double down on this, or I could just stop them altogether and double down on this, put all the resources, all the energy, all the time energy into this. And at that point in time, it's not you didn't quit those first 2 startups, no, right? Those were just like A/B testing points for you.
Well, and to your point, so many of those experiences, if you zoom out and map it on a longer career arc,
Yeah.
play a role into something that maybe you ultimately then crack the code and you figure it out, right? Because you're never really going in blind the second time or the third time or fourth time.
Yeah.
You have a better sense of what you expect, and you continue to pursue your passion and try to figure it out. So I don't think of it as I don't think of it as lost time or like sunk cost. I think of it as learning. But of course, I do understand that there's a lot of other needs, right? You still need to generate income. You still need to, you know, uh, pay for food, housing, shelter, whatever it might be, right? And so I do get it.
Well, oh, oh, I'm glad that you know, we were able to make sense of the quote. And thank you so much for sharing your story and just having uh, a relaxed conversation with me.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah, where can my listeners learn more about you and what you do?
Sure. So, as I said, I work at Mozilla, which is the makers of Firefox.
Yeah.
I work on a number of products. One of them is called Solo, which if anyone wants to check out, it's an AI tool for building a website. It's called Mozilla Solo. You can look it up. Um, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Mobile Raj. I'm on LinkedIn it's my full name, Rajan Singh. You can find me there, or even on Linktree at Mobile Raj. So any of those places you'll be able to find me.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight chatting to you, Raj.
All right. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.